fight cause I'm very nice. I practice it every night to get on this herd mic. You know I'm alert, right? You know that it ain't nothing to serve, right? And I be killing tracks to the earth like my birthright. I'm solid like sound money and you fools sound.
Welcome to 3-Count Commentaries, in which we will be discussing Nia Jax's statement on her release. So I'm going to get out of the habit of reading these things. I'm just going to put them on the screen. You can read them for yourself. I'm going to summarize. So in summary, Nia Jax decided to go on a mental health break from WWE. She was then sent a schedule to return on November the 15th. When she asked for an extension, they did not respond. And then the next thing she knows, she is being released from her contract. So this has led a lot of people to really take the side that, of course, WWE is trash. Nia Jax deserves so much better than this. Even all the people who claim that Nia Jax was one of the worst wrestlers in the world, had the worst attitude in the world, and she should have been fired long time ago. Now it's outrage that she was having a mental health break, whatever that means, and that, you know, they fired her even though she asked for an extension and all this sort of stuff. So this is a very interesting subject as people try to find reasons why certain folks were released, why certain folks were fired. There's been a lot of stuff spinning out of this. There's been a lot of the age issues. Nia Jax was the first person where they mentioned vaccination status, which I just kind of dropped in my video. I always record my videos usually a day before they are released. So let me take it as you will. In any event, Nia Jax was one of the people who was brought up as being anti-vax. And therefore, when she was fired, people were like, oh, well, she should have been fired. So this leads a lot of people to be saying a lot of different stuff about what's going on now. You know, you have the anti-Nia Jax brigade, people who hated her already, who wanted her fired a year ago, 2 years ago, people who never was a fan of hers, people who think that she has a bad attitude, people who think she can't work, people who think she's dangerous. Those people, then you have she actually does have fans, believe it or not, but you have some people who are taken up for her because she needed a, quote, mental health break. I don't know what that means. I don't think the company would have had a problem with her having mental health breaks. I don't think that would have been the issue. There might have been some other stuff that we don't know anything about that went into that. So you have those people who are, oh no, sympathy for the devil because they did this horrible thing and fired somebody during a mental health break. Even though I think it was pretty clear from their perspective they were no longer on a mental health break. Following after that, it was vaccination status, which most people that I've seen is 100% pro fire the unvaccinated. Because there have been a lot of people who are saying, oh, Karrion Kross was unvaccinated, Scarlett was unvaccinated, a bunch of other people were unvaccinated. They said it was 5. That's the number of people that is floating around the internet. As many as of the 18 that were released on Thursday, 5 were unvaccinated. And of course, they didn't say which 5. Nia Jax only said that her vaccination status was not the reason she was given. She did not further comment on the concept of whether vaccination status led to her release or was there any sort of debate over her vaccination status. So you have WWE in this situation. You have to ask the question, would they really be firing people over mental health breaks? The answer is no, they wouldn't. They have let, especially female wrestlers, get away with the whole mental health break stuff for a long time. There likely were other issues involved. Again, this is only Nia Jax's side of the conversation. Until somebody from WWE comes out and talks about it, most people won't know. It could be just contract, length of contract, age, that kind of thing, whether they can get any more out of her. It might have been female Braun Strowman situation where they just kind of felt like it's time for her to go away and do something different. It could have been anything. We don't know. But I think that Nia Jax, of course, has directed the conversation a certain way by saying that it's mental health breaks. That she wanted a mental health break. Which it makes sense. She worked during the pandemic. And as the pandemic starts to wind down, she is in a different headspace. You know, everybody has been affected differently. It makes sense that, you know, from time to time, the way that you are affected is going to eventually weigh you down. She continued to work. So maybe she needed a couple of weeks to wind down and return stronger, bigger, better or whatever. But I don't think that mental health breaks alone, and it doesn't really show from our history of what we've seen with WWE as far as giving talent space and time, that all of a sudden these mental health breaks are now a problem. Again, that's the same thing we heard from Bray Wyatt, though. That of course, I don't think Bray Wyatt actually said anything. I believe it was mostly what the dirt sheets claimed, that he was on a mental health break from what happened to Brody Lee. He had to come back for WrestleMania, but then he needed some more time off. Then it became, they had creative problems, they had creative issues. Vince doesn't like Bray Wyatt, and now it's Keith Lee had backstage issues, attitude issues. It's a bunch of junk. We don't know. It's a bunch of people gossiping and dumping a lot of stuff. But here's my take on it. I believe it was something deeper than mental health breaks for Nia Jax. I think maybe people have just seen all that they have seen from Nia Jax, and it was time for her to go away for a little while. To me, that's not too bad for her to go out and spread her wings. She's had her entire career in WWE so far. She's been in WWE for 10 years? Maybe 8 or 9 years, 7 that she put in her piece. 7 years. So yeah, rounding it up to 10. So what else can she do? She's been a babyface numerous times. She's been a heel numerous times. She's won almost all of the titles. There's not much for her to do anymore. So they sent her out. She wanted to take some time off. Sure, take all the time you need. And I don't know. I think that Nia Jax will be back. I don't think that her 90-day not compete. That's why I thought Braun Strowman, the same thing. I was wrong. They didn't bring him back yet. I still believe that the Royal Rumble is right around the corner. And I think that some of these people who were released will be coming back for the Royal Rumble. I do believe that. Nia Jax will probably be one of those people. Because I just think that she is somebody that they put a lot of time and effort in. And I don't think they want to throw all of that away. But I do think that they're basically saying to themselves, hey, we pay these people enough. If we can't use them, can't have access to them, why are we going to keep paying them? And Braun Strowman was another one that had mental health problems. He admitted so in one of his WWE pieces that he had mental health issues, that he considered suicide and all that kind of stuff. WWE, and I think it was Conan that said it, that is one of the things, no, it might have been Disco Inferno, that's one of the things that is, for Vince, that's a tripwire. When he hears that you have mental health problems, he becomes really gun shy about booking you going forward. And when you look at Sasha Banks, who is probably the highest one when it comes to this whole I need a mental health break, I need to go away for a while kind of stuff, she disappears for several weeks, a year at certain points. So that's why I don't believe this mental health breaks. I believe it's just, they've seen all that they can see out of Nia Jax. She stopped growing as a performer. And they want to see what else she can do. If she's going to go out and spread her wings, or just reinvigorate her by cutting her from the roster and then bringing her back when she's in better condition to take care of herself. They just didn't want to pay for her to do it. Which is, is it a scumbag thing to do? I don't know. I don't believe so. To me, I am an extremist when it comes to people taking extensive amounts of time off and then expecting to continue to be paid. That's one of the things that I admit I'm probably on the quote wrong side of history, unquote, on that kind of thing. I'm all against, excessive amounts of paid time off. Because I think at some point you have to consider the financial burden you're asking the employer to take when you have to be paid to sit at home. Because unless you're going to a literal hospital, you're just basically sitting at home, and it's like, I need a mental health break. It's like, okay, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to take yoga classes, or are you going to, do something that's constructive, like stress relief classes or something like that? Then you could be like, okay, this is what I did while I was at home. Or it's just going to be, you know what, I need a break. I'm going home for 6 weeks. And it's like, wait a minute. You're just going to go home for 6 weeks and then come back? It's like, I think you should have to, like, if you're sick, you go to the hospital, right? And let's say you got COVID. You get a doctor's note that says, hey, I got COVID. And then, when you're COVID negative, you come back, hey, I'm COVID negative. If you injure your ribs and you have to go sit home for 6 weeks, you have a doctor's note that says, hey, I broke my ribs. So I think if you do need a mental health break, I don't think you need a diagnosis. Like, you need to go literally to a mental hospital and sit in there for 6 weeks or whatever. But I think that should be covered, by the way. If you actually go to a mental hospital, like you say you have a mental breakdown or you have substance abuse issues, I do believe the company should pay for that and, should be a little bit more respecting of those types of situations. But I also think that if you're just going to go on a general, I need a break, an extensive break, not a week or two, but, a month, 2 months, then yeah, you need to go take a pottery class or something to show that you have been doing something productive in stress reduction or something to that effect, or you're full of shit. That's my opinion. And I know I'm on the wrong side of this thing, but I think that a lot of people play the mental health card in order to get out of, going to work. I mean, they do. Because you hear about people, I mean, work is stressful. I'm stressed out all the time too. But so are so many other people. That's why I say, like, this whole ordeal of, just playing a stress card, because everybody can play that. So I think that if you're doing something constructive, I think you should be able to show that you're doing something constructive. And I'm not saying you have to spend all your time in yoga class. What I'm saying is, if you take a yoga class for stress reduction or something to that effect, and something that you really didn't do before, you're doing stress management courses or anger management courses or something like that, it shouldn't be an issue of you being able to say, hey, look, I'm taking this, 3-week anger management course or a stress reduction course or whatever, even if it's online, so I'm going to need time off to do that. And then you could show them that this is what you're doing. They can reimburse you if if you paid for it or whatever. And that makes people better. But I think letting people sit at home is pretty weird. That's fucking weird, because that's money going out, especially when you talk about the kinds of contracts that these people are being paid. And I don't think Nia Jackson's making like $6 million or anything like that. Which is, kind of makes it a different conversation, because like in football or something like that, you're talking about people who make $100,000, $600,000 or whatever. Nia Jax is probably in that $500,000 or $600,000 range. And I think that they would have worked with her if they truly believed that she was on a mental health break. They would have worked with her. So I'm kind of not really believing that, because they've done it with so many other people. Why would they, of all people, Nia Jax be the one that they say, you know what, no mental health break for you? They did it with Bray Wyatt. They did it with Sasha Banks. They did it with Alexa Bliss. They did it with Charlotte. They did it with so many others, where they just said, look, I just needed to get away for a while. They let so many other people do it. Why not Nia Jax? Why would they handpick Nia Jax to be the one that gets screwed on this privilege? That doesn't make sense. So it's deeper than that. It's something that they're not sharing, something that they're not saying. Could it be vaccination status? I hope not. I am 100% against firing people for not being vaccinated. I don't think you should be, unless you're going to be responsible for something that happens to them and forcing them to get it. For instance, if they were to get vaccination and to get sick, you should be responsible for that, because you're essentially performing medicine-based policy onto somebody. So unless you're going to be the one that's going to pay the cost for whatever happens to them, I wouldn't suggest that you force people to do anything they don't want to do. So I'm against vaccine mandates, even at the company level. basically because I think that it's ridiculous. I think that it only happens because the government is making it happen. Like most companies have never had vaccine mandates before, except for I think hospitals and maybe teachers. I think that might have been it. I don't even think police officers or anybody like that ever needed to be vaccinated before. Now all of a sudden vaccine status is like one of the number one things that they ask you in job interviews. I'm just kind of like, this is pointless, Moreover, then you have both of your eyes work and both of your ears work. Now they want to know whether you're vaccinated or not. It's like, that's because it's really unnecessary. It's stupid and it's a scare tactic, really. And to me, it's a political bellwether test. We have to figure out if you're one of us or not by deciding, oh, you're one of us because you're vaccinated, or you're not one of us because you're not vaccinated. I don't think Nia Jax would have been fired for not being vaccinated, if we're being honest. I do believe that they probably take it a little bit more seriously, considering the age of Vince McMahon and some of the people backstage, and because of Roman Reigns and Kyle O'Reilly and some of the other people who might be have issues with their immune system. Sure, I do believe they may take it a lot more seriously, but to the point of firing her, I don't think so. And I think that if they really put the hammer down on some of these people who are anti-vax, they would do it. And I do believe that. I think that there's probably only a few, that if you put them in a corner and said, hey, we got to release you if you don't want to get vaccinated, I think very, very few of them would be like, okay, whatever. I think most of them will just say, this is bullshit, man. I don't want to do that. And then they'll end up doing it. That's like, in the NBA, in the NFL, a lot of those guys bitched and complained and whined, but they did it in the end anyway. Very few of them have decided, fuck that vaccine, I'm not going to do it, and then came out publicly and said, fuck it, I'm not going to do it. And I think that in general, wrestling fans are just being dickheads by expecting people, oh yeah, it's okay to fire them because of their vaccine status. It's like, who gives a shit? Nobody cares about that. You can, I'm not going to go into the vaccine thing. I mean, there's no point in it. The issue is I'm for personal liberties. So people want to not put foreign chemicals into their bodies. They don't have to. And I don't think they should be forced to. To me, the idea of forcing people to take the vaccine is like, hey, when people say, oh, Vince is forcing people to take steroids, Vince is forcing people to get boob jobs. It's like, no, he didn't force anybody to do any of those things. But so do I think that he's forcing people to take the vaccine? Not really. I think the government is forcing companies to force people to take the vaccine, because that's literally what they're doing. I mean, when you see that Joe Biden is saying that OSHA is going to look at people who have at least 100 employees, which WWE qualifies to have more than 100 employees. And that does not include wrestlers. Wrestlers are independent contractors. I'm talking about actual employees. When you talk about the office, the staff, and all those kinds of people, they probably have over 100, which means that they're probably going to get harassed by OSHA. So they're likely going to try to enforce something, but it's not going to be Vince McMahon's personal politics that pushes this issue, or the politics of Nick Khan or John Laurinaitis is going to push this issue. It's going to be Joe Biden, because they don't want to get fined or whatever the case may be. Now, I would have preferred if they fought this thing in court and filed a lawsuit like some other companies are doing, but I don't think they would actually get away with that. It's a public relations nightmare to do that, and it doesn't really benefit them to do it. It benefits them to help other people who are doing it, but not for them to do it themselves. So if it's vaccination status that tripped up Nia Jax, and it's bullshit, I will 100% stand on her side and say she didn't have to put anything in her body she doesn't want to, whether it's steroids or boobs or vaccines. I don't give a shit. She shouldn't be forced into having any abortions if she doesn't want to have one, or anything to that effect. When it comes to her health, I will stand on her side. If it's mental health break, then I can see why she would need that and want that, but I think that she should have to prove some type of that she's doing something to improve her mental health, rather than just sitting at home and saying, I just don't want to be on the road. That's bullshit. If you can prove that you've been doing something positive, even if it's just, I'm taking art classes to, for stress relief, then sure, okay, go for that. But if it's just general, we need for her to go away. I actually, respect that too. I can respect that the company says, look, we've done everything we can do with the Nia Jax character. She's been in love angles. She's been the big bully badass heel. She's been the sympathetic baby face. She's been everything. We don't know what else we can do with her. We just have to send her on her way. Then I can respect that too. So the only thing that really will outrage me is if she was fired for not taking vaccines, or if she has a diagnosed mental illness and the company is like, fuck you, we're not going to deal with this diagnosed mental illness or whatever. Then I would say, all right, they're fucked up, they're wrong. But until we have some details of what exactly is going on, I'm just kind of like, look, it could be anything and everybody's just gossiping. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel. Thank you guys for your time, man. And I will talk to you guys later.